Good morning. It is Monday, November 4th, 2024. It's just after 10 a.m. on the East Coast. This is Rob Sin at CEO Technician on X, at Goldfinger on CO.ca. This is Goldfinger Capital. I'm playing Hurt today. Uh, I've got almost a full nasal blockage going on that I have to get taken care of today. Uh, it's a long story, but I think I've been exposed to some mold. Uh, so hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, full nasal blockage. It's hard to breathe through my nose. Makes speaking a little more challenging. But anyway, I'm here playing Hurt, doing my very best. A lot to get to, but I'm gonna be concise. Not gonna be too verbose with my market analysis. I feel like this is a very noisy week. It's been a noisy couple of weeks. I don't have any edge on the election or what the election outcome is going to do for markets. I think, just generally speaking, my sense is getting past this election will be a positive for markets, regardless of the result, as long as it's a clear result. The worst thing, obviously, would be a contended outcome, a contested outcome, rather. A contested outcome where it's not clear, recounts or whatever. Uh, it's a contentious, election, obviously, but we do not want the outcome to be contested. All right, we want it to be a clear winner, loser. The loser congratulates the victor, and peace continues. Right, the world goes on. We make a big deal about these events and this election, but in the grand scheme of history, like a human life, 70, 80, 90 years, or the history of a nation, 250 years, this is but a blip. It's a blip. It's a big deal now, and we think it's going to be the most important, election outcome of our lifetimes. The next 4 years is going to make or break everything. Uh, you know, I would say I have more confidence in this country to survive and thrive past a single president or a single, election outcome. So, yeah, let's be optimistic and let's pray for peace, and even the losing side will be able to wake up the next day and move on with life. Life will continue, and there are brighter days ahead for all of us. All right, so let's keep it on an optimistic note this morning, even though I can't breathe. Oh man, what did I do to get mold in my nose? Um, so anyway, we're in a correction in the gold mining sector. Gold itself down 2 days in a row. Got a pretty good drubbing on Thursday, but again, we have to really put this into perspective, the big picture that corrections are part of the game. Bull markets climb a wall of worry. I know that's kind of a trite adage, but it's so true. Like, if there wasn't something to worry about, if there wasn't a concern that was that the top, it wouldn't be a bull market. It just wouldn't be. The psychology of bull markets means that people have to question it. They have to be skeptical. They have to take profits too soon. They have to be fearful that that was it and we're going to go lower now, that they got sucked in at the top, right? um, but I made this post on my Substack. This is a premium post, but I'll just tease it here. Basically, I think there's two great seasonal trade setups here. One of them is in Newmont. It's come down to major support It's extremely oversold. At the low this morning, it was down 9 days in a row. Let's see how it closes. But this is as oversold as Newmont has ever been. And I sort of break it down why I like it here. And this is for a trade. All right. So those who are like, oh, he's bullish on Newmont, he's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's a trade, guys. It's a trade. It's not a marriage. I don't love the company and their corporate structure and their management and how woke they got back in 21 and 2022. It's just a trade, guys. It's a trade for the next month or two. And really, I think it's 50 before 40. It's really that simple in Newmont. And, seasonally, yeah, the seasonality is not, look, it's not super favorable, but we just went from a period of headwinds for Newmont to a period of tailwinds. And for the gold mining sector more broadly, we're still in this stair step higher, this uptrend, higher lows, higher highs. So let's not overthink it. And, if you just want to stick with the best of breed, the highest quality, then just stay with AEM. Excuse me. Sorry to have to do that on camera, but that's the situation we're dealing with here today. AEM, best of breed for sure. Barron's even highlighted them this weekend. I mean, you could kind of take that as you could take it, for what you will. But clearly, they're being acknowledged for their performance, for their strong performance, and for being able to keep costs in check, while other producers like Barrick and Newmont have not been as good at keeping costs in check. In fact, the reason why Newmont is having this downfall is due to the fact that they really missed on their cost guidance in Q3. But I think there is some reason for maybe a shred of optimism that they can bring costs back down in Q4 and maybe into early 2025. But right now, it's a show-me market. The market doesn't really trust Newmont's guidance because they've disappointed so many times, quite frankly. Uranium seasonal trade. So we have this period, November, basically the final 2 months of the year, where the uranium sector has this tendency to really catch a lift. And in particular, November, right? And it just so happens here we are falling as we enter the month of November. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity. And there is some news this morning. Basically, U.S. regulator has, rejected the Amazon, power plant agreement in Pennsylvania. I don't have any major insights on that, but obviously it's rocking the sector this morning. But sometimes these things take time, especially with regulators, right? Federal, regulators like FERC. So I think this is an opportunity to get in, quite frankly. So I was a buyer of Cameco here this morning off the open, started a new trade here. And again, this is a trade. We could talk about fundamentals till we're blue in the face, but just simply put, this is a pretty compelling, just technical chart setup. Buying it at support after a pretty decent pullback, just as seasonality becomes more favorable. We got the little golden cross. There's a lot of things to like here in CCJ. And normally, in bull markets, the only time you're going to be able to get in on a pullback is when there is some bad news. When there is some FUD, some fear, and doubt, creeps into the equation, and that's what we have here. So if you are a longer term bull, you gotta take advantage of it. I do want to just sort of tease tax law season. I'll have more on this for sure over the next month, but this is the time to really start putting your list together. Start thinking about what are your best ideas for tax law silly season, because even though generally speaking this has been a rising market in 2024, the juniors, there's been plenty of losers. It's a very mixed bag, no doubt about it. So there's plenty of tax loss, silly season candidates out there. So you just need to do your own work. And this is my post from last year where I sort of dig into what I look for. So definitely check that out. And again, I'll have more on this. But you really want to look at, try to find names that have been beaten down for maybe unfair reasons. Unfair. Now, that's open to interpretation. Like, what is unfair? Well, maybe they just had some bad luck in 2024. You speak to the CEO, you like the story, you have confidence that they can turn it around in 2025, and maybe there's a prominent catalyst in Q1 of 2025 that could really sort of turn this around once the calendar shifts to January 1st, 2025. So that's sort of how you want to be thinking about these things. You also want to focus on how much cash the companies have. If they're absolutely out of cash and they are going to need to raise, well, that's sort of a strike against them. You know, I wouldn't say it's a red flag, but it's definitely not a positive. And just looking at this list from last year, I did pretty well. And remember, these are all trades, so they're not marriages. You have to sort of think, well, if we buy them at the end of the year, how did they perform 3, 4, 5 months out into the new year? And all of these did pretty well. With Aston Bay, I was up 150% at one point. With Orion, up 50% at one point earlier this year. With RDG, we got a double here off of its buy point at the end of 2023. Star Royalties up 50%. Yeah, so this is a pretty, WEX up 50. Actually, this doubled. This actually doubled at the high earlier this year. So a lot of winners there. I've taken some abuse in the past from my tax loss list because I don't think people understand it. It's not buy and hold for 5 years. No, that's not what we're doing. It's a trade. It's a 3 to 5 month trade normally. And this list did very well at the end of 2023. So let's see what 2024 brings. And you'll be seeing that my new list out in the next month. So, and these are some other uranium potential setups. Next gen right into the support zone. So that's another one to look at. UEC right into the support zone. So these gave us some fat pitches here. It's just a matter of how we want to trade them, how we want to manage these trades. But some good entries in the uranium sector this morning. So let's be grateful for that. But then let's also remember to size positions accordingly to our bankroll, our risk tolerance, and think about the risk first before you press the buy button. How much are you willing to lose if this goes against you, right? Because even though it's a good setup, it doesn't mean it has to work out, right? Even great trade setups that I would take 100 out of 100 times, you might have 10 or 20 losers from those 100 times, right? And you just have to accept it. They're not always going to work out. And embrace the loss because it's part of the tuition to play the game. So Hercules Metals, I woke up to this just before 8 a.m. and this was a pleasant surprise. I was very happy to read this. And as I dug into it over the first hour I was awake today, I was like, oh, stock's going to be up today. This is great news. Well, it's down. It opened up, but then it sold off. It's down 2 cents. So I don't think people really understand what they're reading here this morning. I mean, that's my sense. So, shallow porphyry mint and new hydrothermal breccia. That's something we haven't heard from Hercules so far. So, pleased to provide an update on recent drilling as assay results are pending at the Leviathan porphyry copper system, blah, blah, blah. RC drilling has advanced rapidly with 3 holes completed and a 4th in progress. So the RC rig is moving very fast. 3 new holes stepped out to the southeast, 2419 through 21, all intersected early biotite alteration with mineralization beginning progressively closer to surface, starting as early as 72 meters true depth in hole 2420. Very interesting. So this new breccia has clasts of porphyry in it. So that's why they're saying shallow porphyry mineralization in the headline, because there's evidence of porphyry mineralization in the breccia. Yeah, so 72 meters true depth in hole 2420. And it remains open towards a large surface anomaly, which is over here in the eastern fault block. So, yeah, so here's 2420. Here's where it's collared, right next to the boundary with the Forest Service side, and the big copper soil anomaly over here in the east. But it's drilled to the west. And I guess that right where the purple shaded area starts is where they enter that porphyry mineralization at 72 meters true vertical depth. And this is interesting because look at this collar for 2421. It's kind of hard to see. You need to kind of zoom into it. But there it is. And you see how they extended this purple biotite area all the way to the end of 2421, which evidently was drilled with the RC rig. Based upon the core images, this is being drilled with the core rig. So 2420 is still in progress. And look at the drill trace. This is looking like it's going to be a 1,000-meter hole, the way they have traced this all the way across. And it's still in progress, right? But this is very interesting. And 2419 also completed. So the red, 2422 and 2420 are still in progress. The green are completed. So 2321 and 2419 are completed. And it's extending this early biotite area. Pretty big area now it's covering. So that's very encouraging. And what does early biotite sort of alteration mean? Well, it means the potassic. Okay, that is the potassic core that we have been waiting on. That this has been the focus. The focus here in 2024. And in the last news, which was October 10th, 3 weeks ago, sort of, one of the key points was targeting to the southeast, down plunge to the southeast. And it continues to vector toward the potassic core of the system. And that was basically the aim of 2420 and 2419, right? So now we get some additional information about these two holes. And early biotite alteration is intersected in 3 new holes to the southeast. So that's 1920 and 2020 and 2021. 1920 and 21. Right? And potentially plunging under 2314, previously thought to be the edge of the system. So this is what's a little confusing is this hole 2314, which wasn't great. I don't even know what the assays were, but probably something like 0.2%, 0.15%. It wasn't great copper min. And I don't even think that the enrichment blanket was found in 2314. So this hole was kind of a red herring because it kind of pushed them away from the eastern part of the system for a while. And all the vectoring early this year was focused on the northwest, where the grade appeared to be increasing in 2305. If you compare like 2311, 2321 with 2305, well, the vector was northwest. But that was in the enrichment blanket, in the hypogene blanket at the top of the Triassic. And it kind of screwed up it did screw up some of the targeting, it seems, because now these three holes, 19, 20, and 21, have apparently honed in on the Potassic in this area. Which is just to the west of 2314. And they're actually saying the plunge that they're seeing in the Porphyry min and these holes tells them that it's plunging to the southeast under 2314. So something changes right in this area, apparently. So it warrants further investigation for sure, for sure. And let's see. So the breccia pipe, potentially vertically extensive potential, right? And I pulled up some graphics here. Magmatic hydrothermal breccia from 76 meters to 157 meters, never seen before. Yeah, so let's see. So here is an example of what can happen. Like here you have your porphyry, and here is the breccia coming up from the porphyry center at depth, right? And you have something similar over here. So generally speaking, this sort of pipe structure that comes from an explosive hydrothermal event, I mean, it basically explodes up from the porphyry intrusive at depth. It's helping you vector into the core of the system. I mean, look at this diagram. Here's the porphyry core with 1% copper equivalent grade. And you have the pipe coming up right to surface from it. So the breccia is giving you clues as to what exists at depth, right? And they gave us some core photos, and you can look through it. It's on the website, of the breccia in 2420. And look at this. I mean, it's not super high resolution, but that's chalcopyrite. And this is some pretty heavy quartz veining here throughout this. And it's hard to tell, but it looks like there could be some bornite in here too. You need to really look at this. There's some dark areas here. Like, what is that? Is it chalcocite, bornite? I don't know. This core looks really good to me. I mean, we need to see the assays. I like to see it up close, but this looks pretty encouraging, right? Yeah, I mean, look at that. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, looks pretty good to me. Again, we just see it at better resolution, and obviously everything, depends on assays, but this is encouraging. And looking at this map again, made me think about something a little differently. Like, okay, so if they're finding potassic here in this area where there's this high chargeability, anomaly just to the east, and we know that there's this high chargeability anomaly up at Green Creek, and we know that in the news they say that there could be a separate intrusive center to the north that has brought some potassic sort of alteration into 24.8 and 24.12 and may have increased the grades in these holes. Quite clearly, that's the insinuation. We know that 24.08 graded well, and there may have been an overprint there in the enrichment blanket. It made me look back at this and be like, look at this trend. You could draw a line, like a diagonal line, right here. We know there's a chargeability high down here in the south, all the way down here. You can see it's sort of teased here, but it exists, and they even mention it in this news release. Where is it? Here. So 2405 encountered a plug of late porphyry associated with a chargeability low. However, high chargeability continues further south of Camp Creek and remains to be tested. So here's 2405, yeah, but here's the chargeability high down here. Well, there's a trend. You could just draw a line. There's a trend right here, and there seems to be some sort of fault structure that runs the same, the same northeast trending sort of way. I don't know. It's just very interesting because now I'm starting to think, okay, multiple porphyry centers along some sort of a fault structure that runs southwest, northeast here. And maybe that is why we have this sort of change where it seems we're in Potassic over here, and then 2314 found something else, right? It was more distal there. Something changed. Something changed right over here. It's funny how 2314 may have been collared right at the change and drilled the wrong way to find this center. Wow. Yeah, it's very interesting. And so they put a couple of core pics in here showing the matrix, strong quartz veins, stockworks in the class. I mean, look at those, the veining there, right? It's pretty strong. Yeah, so this to me is very encouraging, and I kind of feel like this is the best news Hercules has produced since October 10th, 2023. And it kind of brings to mind the saying, sometimes the wait is longer because the blessing is bigger. Maybe cheesy or whatever, but that's the first thing that came to mind. It's like we've undressed the bride slowly here at Hercules. It's tested a lot of people's patience, but I think all of the great ones test your patience. That's just how it goes. There's no way around it. It's going to test your patience. And it's not a linear process. You don't drill one hole and then the next hole is better and then the next hole is better. No, it's tricky, and especially with the amount of movement, tilting, faulting, and I think that's a big part of this, why this puzzle's been so challenging. I think this porphyry formed probably somewhere in this area. It was vertical when it was emplaced 205 million years ago. And then I think it was tilted onto its side, pointing to the northwest. And that's why here's like the leach cap, right? Here's the top of the system is all the way over here. Well, the core of it is somewhere down here. So you can do the math on how far this is. It's at least 1,000 meters. But it's been tilted on its side. So it's not typical porphyry sort of exploration where you just drill down into the thing and you find it and you've got your phyllic, you got your potassic, and you just drill 20 holes and you got it all figured out. No, this has been a puzzle because of the tilting, the shifting, the faulting that has occurred here. And then the enrichment blanket threw another curveball at the whole thing because you're following the grade vector at the top of the system. Well, that doesn't necessarily lead you to the core of the system, right? The potassic core of the system. So this has been tricky, but this news this morning is very encouraging for me. Hole 20 is still in progress in early biotite alteration. I mean, it feels to me like they wrote this news release trying to not get people too excited, to not overpromise, because assays are pending. Obviously, the hole is still in progress, for God's sakes, right? And there's only so much information they can gather from the RC chips in hole 2421, but they also felt this was important to report this to the market. So something has changed here, and the purple shaded area is the big news of the morning, okay? So we have a potential porphyry center with potassic zone intact here, and we have this big enrichment blanket that's extremely extensive. It remains open to the west, to the southeast, and to the north. I don't know. I mean, the market isn't excited about this, that I just have to, hit them over the head with assays. I mean, that's really, I guess that because of how the story has played out this year, big has turned into a show me story where the market doesn't really get excited about sizzle. Like, they want to see the steak. And that's fair. That's fair. But as I said, and I think I've covered everything I want to talk about, we have potential for multiple porphyry centers, like fingers on a hand, coming up across this potential structure, southwest, northeast structure. Looks like they're honing in on one in this area that I was calling the gap zone. Remember, the season started with, like, we're going to investigate Belmont and Grade Creek. Well, they haven't fully investigated. They haven't investigated Grade Creek and Belmont. There's been some false starts there. I think the early hypothesis is still open. Okay, it's not been, it hasn't been invalidated. Okay, let's put it that way. Sorry, guys. Magmatic breccia is a release of energy. The more extensive the brecciation, the greater the energy that generated the event. The breccias can host large quantities of copper, but most likely the breccia is a clue as to what exists at depth. I think that's the best way to explain it. We're getting clues as to what exists at depth in the core of the porphyry. And the clues are pretty intriguing. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty intriguing. Yeah, I think these are my favorite ones. These three boxes here. But let's see. Let's see. I had some other graphics here just showing the pipes coming up from the porphyry. Very large vertical extent potential there. And here's another one. Here's the breccia going down into the ore shell of the porphyry. So follow the breccia down, maybe. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me playing Hurt today. I think I got to everything I wanted to talk about. Early biotite alteration equals potassic zone. Let's see what's to come. The assays are pending, of course, so let's not get too excited, but grateful for a positive update this morning from Hercules Metals. Thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, if you enjoyed my content, please hit the like and subscribe button. And hopefully I'm going to get my sinuses straightened out here in the next few hours. Thanks for watching and have a powerful trading week.